Welcome into week 2 of the College Football Catch-Up podcast on the Stateline Sports Reporters podcast. A little bit of a tongue twister there. We're through week 1 of college football. I watched some good football. I also watched some not so good football from my Clemson Tigers. That was a little heartbreaking, but you win some and you lose some. And speaking of losing, we'll start off with ETSU, who did lose game 1, but it wasn't an embarrassing loss. It kind of was expected. They hung close with App State through 3 quarters, and that kind of surprised some people. But, this week should be a cakewalk. In theory, they're taking on a Division II opponent in UVA-wise right up the road. The two teams have met only once before, back in 2021. The Bucks took that win 45-14. This will be ETSU's home opener, which in theory, normally you have a couple of new faces. This is going to be a lot of players' first game day in William B. Green Jr. Stadium. With the amount of transfers and new faces we have, much less an entire new coaching staff, that this will be their first home game. So there's a lot of excitement around that. The biggest takeaway from last week was the passing game, or rather the lack thereof. Coach Trey Lamb straight up said it was bad. It was not good. They need some growth in that passing game. The thought process is, you're a little high strung game 1. You're going to have some lofty passes, but we definitely need to cut back on that in week 2. These are 2 first-year head coaches going head-to-head. Trey Lamb has talked about the issues about going up against Gary Bass and the Cavaliers, given that there's no film on them. They didn't play last week. This will be their season opener. And ETSU really, they're not overlooking UVA-wise, but they know what they have on the horizon with NDSU coming to town in 2 weeks, and so they really need to get the win here. All right, we are moving on along. Another team that started 0-1 really unexpectedly. Virginia Tech had all the hype around them, and then they lost. Disappointing overtime loss to Vanderbilt, 34-27. They're going up against Marshall in their home opener this week. Marshall opened with a 45-3 win over FCS Stony Brook. The Hokies, big disappointment was their run game. They failed to hit 100 yards on the ground. They did have 322 receiving yards in the air, but truly their first half was absolutely atrocious. They finally were able to put some things together, string some things together in the second half. And it looked, they put themselves in a great position, up with 4 minutes left, and then they could not hold Vanderbilt out of the end zone, and that ended up leading to an overtime loss. Virginia Tech's defense just not where they expected to be. They allowed 181 rushing yards. That's just not common for Virginia Tech. Last year, so strong on defense. Their front was supposed to come back. They returned everyone from that front line. They added a transfer from Duke. It was supposed to be the strong point, and yet they still managed to allow 181 yards. It was just not the way that they wanted to start. They did have some bright lights. Ollie Jennings and Jalen Lane provided a spark late in the wide receiver room. Both of them had some big catches late in that game. That's expected from them. They need to be doing that week in, week out. Truly, the Hokies need to get Bashal Tootin the ball a little bit more and be able to have him be more productive. Their offensive line was just not allowing anything to happen in the run game, and they need to have some improvement game 1 to game 2. The Hokies, talking about how they allowed 181 yards. Marshall ran for over 259 yards last week. So that they can get it done on the ground. They need to stop that in this game. All right, game 3 this week, we have a ranked matchup. We have Tennessee taking on NC State. This is a neutral game in Charlotte. We will be out there. Heather Williams is going to cover that game. These 2 teams have played just 3 times before, with Tennessee picking up the most recent win all the way back in 2012 when the Vols beat the Wolfpack 35-21. Both of them opened their seasons against SoCon FCS members. NC State played Western Carolina. Tennessee played Chattanooga. And if you tuned in to that Tennessee-Chattanooga game, I was able to be there on the sidelines. It was a butt whooping. That's the easiest way to say it. They won 69-3. Nico Yamaleava looked almost perfect in that first half, threw for 314 yards. That set a new Tennessee record for most yards thrown for in the first half. Now, Tennessee obviously knows that this will be a different challenge. This NC State is bringing a balanced attack with really a lot of strengths in all three phases of the games. But coming off of that lights out performance and knowing the confidence that Nico was able to gain at home, there's a lot of confidence around this program right now. The run game looked solid for Tennessee. The problem Tennessee will present for NC State is their fast-paced offense. I was caught off guard from it. They were boom, boom, boom. They give you no rest. They're ready to go, and they can carry it down the ball quick. NC State is bringing some experience at quarterback. They've got Grayson McCall, a transfer from Coastal Carolina. They also had wide receiver Kevin Concepcion. He had a great game one, as well as their running back. Now, NC State did struggle a little bit with Western Carolina. They actually trailed leading into the fourth quarter last week, able to put together 3 touchdown drives in that fourth quarter to kind of put some distance there. A lot of people are thinking that this is going to be a good game. I don't really see how NC State can compete with Tennessee. I think Tennessee is on another level right now, but we'll see. This should be a pretty good game coming up this weekend. And now that we have wrapped up with our local teams, we have one specialty game that we're going to be highlighting this week. We have number 3 Texas versus number 10 Michigan, the biggest game of the week, College Game Day there. Once again, Michigan was able to open up their season with a win, only 30-10 over Fresno State. Texas, meanwhile, 52-0 over Colorado State. So a little bit of a difference there. There was a point in the fourth quarter where Michigan only held a 16-10 lead last week. That's a little bit concerning. Obviously a whole lot of turnover. Quarterback's gone, head coach is gone. Lost a lot of pieces from that national championship team. But to be 16-10 in the fourth quarter against Fresno State is just not what you're expecting off of the reigning national champs. Now, Michigan quarterback Davis Warren, that was his first start. He's a guy that you want to root for. He's a great story. He was able to beat leukemia in high school, actually. Worked so hard to earn that starting job after walking on at Michigan. He said that he has a bigger motivation behind playing. He's playing for all of the kids that are battling cancer right now because he knows any fight that he has on the field is going to be easier than what they're going through. Now, when we get back to the actual statistics here, the Wolverines did struggle on offense last week, only posting a total of 269 yards. So they have some growth there. Quinn Ewers on the other end had a strong game, 260 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. You also got to see the ever so mysterious Arch Manning. He found the end zone for his first collegiate touchdown, actually picked up 2, one passing, one rushing touchdown on Saturday. He's actually earning more NIL money than the starting quarterback. You don't really hear that much in college football, but there's a lot of money thrown into that Texas program, and they're expecting a lot of success to come out of that. Now, this will just be the second ever meeting between these two teams after they met in the Rose Bowl back in 2005. Talk about a close game. Texas was able to win that game 38-37. You don't really get much closer than that. But this game is in the Big House, and it will be the biggest game of the week, so you never know what could happen. Before we close it out, we are going to head into our Lauren's Locks segment. My coworker told me on Monday it may as well be renamed Lauren's L's because we did a little bit questionable week 1. I'm hoping to get some redemption here. They're actually starting off UVA-wise at ETSU. I don't know where you can bet on this. I didn't see it betting anywhere. Obviously, I would pick ETSU to win. They should win handedly if you find somewhere to bet on them. Moving on along to Marshall at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech opened as 16.5-point favorites. They've now jumped to 20.5-point favorites. I don't know what the books know, but that's a decent little jump there. I'd say that it's a pretty safe bet that Virginia Tech is going to win. I don't know if I have them covering that 20.5-point favorite there after their performance yesterday. They have some stuff to prove. I hope that they can prove it, but I'm not feeling confident in that one at all. Moving on to Tennessee, NC State. Tennessee opened 4.5-point favorites, now up to 8.5-point favorites. I think that's lowballing what the Vols and Nico Yamaliava can do. I think that they can handle that 8.5. They can cover that easily against NC State under the lights. I think they get it done in Charlotte. And then moving on, last game, we've got Texas at Michigan. Texas opened as 4-point favorites. Line is now up to 7.5. I don't know if they beat them by more than a touchdown. I might keep Michigan to cover. I do think that Texas will win this game, though. I think that the Longhorns will head back to Texas quite happy with their performance. And so that wraps up our week 2 of the college football catch up. So I hope you come and tune in next week, and I hope that my picks do a little bit better than they did last week. Thank you.